Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Woo!
This week, we have a couple interesting topics. I know when you told me your topic, I was like, what?
This is the first week that I'm saying this, and you actually didn't say it. I'm Robin Grace. That's Adam Diaz over there. I got the names backwards, but I still was the first person to do it. I almost always say it, and she's like, I already said that. This time I actually paid attention, and you didn't say it. Just got the names wrong. Yeah, interesting topics
you do it on
indeed.
Purpose?
What, get the names wrong?
Yeah.
No, I'm just tired.
Okay.
So I'm going to be covering what's known as Havana Syndrome. Robin, what are you going to be covering?
I'm going to be covering the Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible.
Okay, interesting. Two super non-controversial topics that I really hope we don't get a whole lot of feedback that's negative on. But that sounds like it's going to be a fun episode. It's kind of funny because we've been doing this thing more recently where we talk about what we've done in our day-to-day between episodes, and it's kind of fun to do again. I think we kind of lost track of that for a little while. We watched the American Horror Story season, the first and second episodes with where are they at in this season? I don't even remember. It's like some writer rents out a house in the middle of nowhere, basically. And it's okay so far.
I actually like this season so far. It's better than the Apocalypse one for me.
I'm not minding it, but I don't have a lot of high hopes for a lot of American Horror Story seasons. I think they just end on a sour note. But yeah, could be good. And then on top of that, Robin watched this movie, and I wasn't paying any attention to it. I turned around and watched the last 30 minutes of it. I was like, wow, this is actually a pretty good horror movie. Like, it has good storyline. It has actually really good effects. We cannot remember the name of it for the life of us.
I remembered what it was called. It was about a girl that goes back to like her hometown, and she
in like Venezuela, right?
Yeah, something like that. And she gets kidnapped as an adult, and the villagers or whatever think that she's possessed, and then it's about brujas and stuff like that. So it's really good. I really liked it. I wish I remembered what it was called. You could probably Google all that stuff and it'll come up with the movie, right?
We really did try and hunt it down, but we could not find it. But I turned around, I watched it. I was like intently watching the climax of this film, and I thought they handled it super well. And I was like, I really want to watch this movie. I think it's really good. Don't remember the name of it. Yep. So that is a bummer. Aside from
I like that everything we say is like, we watched this and we watched this. We watch a lot of TV when we're like working on homework, working on work. We just have something always in the background.
You
right?
need some background noise to kind of zonk you out. I think that's what we are for some people. So if this is your zonk out noise, then we hope we're doing a good job.
Nice.
But yeah, that's some insight into what we've been doing this past week since our last topic episode. So fun stuff. We'll definitely have more to say for next week's episode because on
this
Thursday
weekend we're going to Sacramento for SAC Anime. It's actually an anime convention that we and the JJ Obsession are going to be vendoring at in the Artist Alley. So if you guys are out there and you're into anime and stuff, you can check us out.
It'll be under the name Artsy Engineers, correct?
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Come check us out. I won't be there, I think, on the first Friday for the event, but then I'll be there subsequently for the Saturday and Sunday. Very excited to spend Labor Day weekend out there. It's going to be a good time. So I will say, aside from that, this week I really wasn't quite sure what I was going to cover. I actually hadn't even gotten to the point of considering it today. Not even considering the genre I wanted to cover. And then I had a meeting today after my like big kid JOB with the capital J with my friend Garrett and the super famous Captain Fake Eye over a joint project that we're going to be covering in the future. And also huge shout out to Faye. She is coordinating the meetup that is being called SpookyCon PA 2021. It's going to be taking place.
A casual meetup.
It's going to be taking place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on October 16th and 17th. And essentially, we just have a large population of spooky friends who are very outspoken in Pennsylvania that kept telling us we should come out there. Faye basically said, let me take a hold of this thing and make it a reality. So now we have dates picked. We have some events. We're going to go see Eastern State Penitentiary, which is super cool, and eat cheesesteaks. That's all I know I'm committed to. And it sounds like a fun time. So if you would like to join, let us know. We'll give you the details. It's going to be basically everyone just sort of shows up if they can. And if you want to do the tour, you buy your own tickets. We're all just going to basically meet up at these places and go. And we'll see. We'll coordinate as best we can. And I think that Everyone is kind of like, if you're going to get there, figure out your own travel. If you're going to hang out and go to the event, then just time it right, and we'll see how it goes.
It's literally just like meeting up. So everybody has their own rides. Everybody has their own travel. Everybody has their own place that they're staying.
Your accommodations. We're not providing anything.
No.
So we're just going to let you know that October 16th and 17th, there will be specific places we'll be at in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, and we'll let you know where those are going to be and what we're doing. So I think we're settling on a time soon for the Eastern State Penitentiary thing, which is cool. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on all of our social medias, and we can also make a channel for it in our Discord. We have a separate Discord set up right now. But yeah, just in case anyone's interested, we talked about it at the end of last episode when we were doing like the outro. I think a lot of folks skip out on the outro, so I just want to go ahead and toss it in there for the beginning since people are definitely listening right now. So one more time, shout out to Captain Fake Eye for basically taking a hold of that bull by the horns and getting this thing going. So it's pretty cool. That said, at the end of the meeting between Faye and Garrett mentioned something to me that he found Scaryish. And then I mentioned it to Robin, and she agreed that it's just plain scary. So as we all know, what Mike Garrett wants, Mike Garrett gets. So without further ado, I present to you the topic of Havana Syndrome. So before I dive into this, I will say here at Scaryish, we remain completely apolitical. All of our social medias, all of our interactions, all of our live streams, and our shows are apolitical. We don't talk about politics whatsoever, and although we will be talking about incidents that did occur to diplomats, we'd like to again remind everyone of our apolitical stance. So posts regarding this should follow all of our community guidelines. Thank you. Appreciated. So what is Havana Syndrome? Well, it's obviously when that song Havana by Camila Cabello comes on and you just get lost in the music. Not really. Although that shit slaps, it just oozes sexuality.
Is that what that song oozes?
Sexuality? I use that catchphrase because that's how your sister describes you.
Oh, God.
She just oozes sexuality. The Havana Syndrome I'm referring to actually dates back to 2016 is when it kicked off. Y'all remember 2016, right? The Cubs won the World Series and nothing else notable happened at all for all of 2016. It was a great year. I think we all remember that, right?
I thought 2016 was a dumpster fire of a year.
It was, but the Cubs won the World Series, and that's all I choose to remember. I blocked out the rest, except for the appearance of Havana Syndrome. So the original group of individuals that began experiencing this phenomenon were American and Canadian diplomats residing in Cuba's capital city of Havana. They began experiencing bizarre health issues. In fact, they didn't just start experiencing bizarre health issues, they had events that led up to these bizarre health issues. The symptoms would appear suddenly, and they would hear strange grating noises that seemed to be coming from a specific direction. So imagine you're hearing something, and you know it's not coming from one spot or another, it's coming from somewhere specific. Some folks that experienced it stated that it was a pressure they felt, while others stated it was a vibration that they were feeling. Others compared it to driving a car with the window slightly rolled down. So I imagine it's that thing that happens when you have the window rolled down and like it's rhythmically buffeting wind into your car. It's like...
It's because of the air pressure. It's like there's no flow, so it's just the pressure on your ears.
That noise is so annoying, and I imagine that is what they were describing when they talked about having your window partially rolled down. So the time it happened to each person varied, and it lasted for as short as 20 seconds and for as long as up to 30 minutes. And it always happened while they are either at their home in Havana or in their hotel rooms if they are staying at a hotel room. It was also what I'm calling a targeted event because nearby individuals like friends, family members, and guests in other rooms didn't notice anything at all.
Maybe it's something like the Kingsmen where they have chips implanted in their brains.
I think then they wouldn't have gone public with this information, so just saying, and if it's like Kingsman, then their heads would have exploded. So this began in late 2016, like I mentioned, but it was not an isolated incident. The results of the bizarre event that I think we can all picture in our mind's ear as the sound from the window in your car going ba-da-da-da-da, caused the victims to experience hearing loss, memory loss, nausea, in some cases severe nausea, and concussion symptoms. As to what could possibly have caused this, there has been quite a few theories. I remember hearing about this back in like 2017 when it first hit the news. They weren't really talking about it in 2016 outside of government channels. Why are you touching your ears?
Because it's like, you know how sometimes you have like a thumping in your ears? Do you ever feel that?
It's usually my pulse when I have a thumping in my ears.
Okay, that's what I feel right now. It's like it's a painful pulsing in my ear.
So it's like psychosomatic because I'm talking about this. All of a sudden, you're super aware of it.
Yeah, it hurts, man.
Which is funny because I'm going to talk about some more stuff later on that revolves around being psychosomatic symptoms.
Okay.
So I remember hearing about it, and I heard about a bunch of different stuff. The original hypothesis regarding what was happening was that it could be some sort of bizarre exposure that the diplomats all shared to some unknown structure or surface or substance. The other more widely believed theory that came into play almost immediately as well was that there was some sort of unknown device that was able to target a single individual to produce these symptoms. When theorized what this mysterious device could be, there's been a lot of theories, especially when it comes to what it could be doing essentially to produce these symptoms. The first one I remember hearing on the news that sort of really popped off was that it was some sort of sonic attack. I don't know if you remember when that came out where they were saying some sort of sonic attack. Yep. That's what I had heard when Garrett brought it up earlier today. That's where my mind immediately went. I still don't know why this little blue hedgehog would decide to turn against Americans and Canadians.
I fucking hate you.
It's a mystery to me. I imagine it has something to do with gold rings. Those seem to be important, and he's a monster for them.
Like that literally did knock people out. That sonic, like the quote-unquote sonic attacks were like...
People were getting messed up, and that's what this is about. And honestly, I'm not sure who posited the sonic attack theory first, but the idea that some sort of device was using infrasound as a method to cause these issues was floated around, and it's still kind of out there as well. Lots of investigations actually took place into the happenings in Havana, but there was no evidence found of a, quote, an intentional sonic attack, end quote, which really makes it seem like there may be evidence of an unintentional one, because it's just a really weird thing to put into a government report that it's an intentional sonic attack that there's no evidence of.
Because it exists.
Well, that's not, you're just jumping to...
No. Like, I think there is technology out there, like, a type of sonic blast, right? That there's got to be a bomb out there that could create.
Now you think it's a bomb?
No, I'm saying there is sonic technology out there that the government probably has, right?
Well, I'm sure there's stuff we don't know about, but let me get into some of the other things as well. I just thought the verbiage of intentional is weird because it's like maybe there was an unintentional sonic attack. The next theory that popped up was that there was a device that was utilizing microwaves to attack the diplomats, not some sort of infrasound. This wasn't
they were just chucking microwaves at them.
This wasn't, I almost put that joke in actually. This wasn't just some person making shit up on the internet either. This actually came out in Neurocomputation, which is a scientific journal, and they published a study in 2018 from a Dr. Beatrice Alexandra Golem. Dr. Golem...
Name sounds fake as fuck.
Dr. Golem has an MD and a PhD from UC San Diego and has worked for the better part of the last 2 decades with veteran patients to study the issues resulting from their service, so post-traumatic stress disorder, things like that, as well as the risks and benefits of the treatments offered to them. So she's not just studying the things that they went through and the conditions that they come out with. She's also studying what could happen to people if they take the treatments that are basically offered to them to manage what they go through. She has primary areas of focus and has worked extensively on Gulf War illness, which is another illness with a cluster of symptoms that doesn't seem to have one solid explainable cause, but it has legitimate symptoms. Her research studied what was happening in Havana for this 2018 study and stated that the descriptions of the attacks, so to speak, I'm using the word attacks, I don't think it's actually used in any of these, and the symptoms that followed were consistent with pulsed radio frequency / microwave radiation, which an abbreviation for it is RF/MW. So like radiation frequency / microwave radiation. In her study, she states that the noises they reported are extremely similar to the sounds caused by pulsed RFMW, and it's something called the Frey effect. So it doesn't talk about being in over your head or how to save a life. I really hate that band. When I read the Frey,
I was like,
instantly those songs started playing in my head, and I started thinking about like season 1 of Grey's Anatomy.
Okay, I was just like, what are you talking about? What?
It's just the way a human being hears microwaves directed at them. Something really interesting, in fact.
All I can think of is what
you're picturing a microwave. Yeah.
Yes.
I got it.
And what the microwave sounds like when you're trying to heat something up. Yeah, and just the thing.
That's all it sounds
going,
like.
Yeah.
Something really interesting about the Frey effect is that folks that have microwaves pointed at their dome piece can hear thrums or clicks or sometimes even speech, which is induced by the microwave. There's no headphones or even a cell phone nearby that's needed. There's no electronic receiver. It's just the reaction that your head basically has to microwaves being beamed directly at it.
All right.
While it's not completely known exactly how it works, it is believed to be a, quote, thermoelastic expansion of portions of the auditory apparatus, end quote. Basically, your head's hearing pieces heat up and expand. And that's why you hear these things when microwaves are pointed directly at your head. That sounds dangerous as fuck to me.
Anymore, and your head could literally explode.
I should note that individuals who reported this happening to them suffered permanent hearing loss, and one of them in particular now has to use a hearing aid to hear out of the ear that was affected.
Wow.
So the symptoms that were caused by whatever event happens, the attacks, are consistent with these microwaves. And on top of that, the way that their physical bodies reacted to it is also very consistent with this, including any damage that might happen because of this. The U.S. actually wound up kicking out 2 Cuban diplomats in response to what was happening in Havana. So cases kept occurring to American and Canadian diplomats. No one was figuring out what was going on.
And it was just those 2 countries.
Correct. In Havana, in just that one embassy. So there was punishment against the Cuban diplomats. They're basically told to leave our country because if things weren't going well there, they're basically saying, like, we don't want as many people here because we're going to start pulling people out of the embassy down in Cuba. By March of 2018, the U.S. State Department reduced the staff in that particular embassy to the minimum level required to perform, quote, core diplomatic and consular functions. Anyone who's ever worked for a job where they basically come in and fire everyone kind of knows what it's like to go down to skeleton crew. This was done because of these attacks. Basically, the people that were left, they were told, you're essential, you have to stay here, which is some verbiage that we're kind of used to now in 2021 about being essential even though things are dangerous.
Yeah.
And everyone else got pulled out. The FBI investigated what was happening, but like a movie, they were stopped during their investigation by the CIA, who were also performing an investigation and refused to share any details for fear of them being leaked.
That's some sketch-ass shit.
The identities of these individuals have not been released ever.
The ones that were affected.
Correct.
What?
Their medical details have been released, and they have been studied, and I'm about to get to that. But their identities haven't been revealed because they're worried that too much getting leaked, basically, could be dangerous in general. The same year in 2018, those that were affected did have medical studies performed on them to basically see what was going on in their dome pieces. People here get a bit dickish. So, and that's my opinion on how everyone behaves. Rather than dive into the whole drama behind all these studies that are going to be done, let me just break down the saga in a quick summary of evaluating the health of these victims. So first, there was a study that came out from the University of Pennsylvania that examined all 21 diplomats affected by Sonic the Hedgehog. This was at the request of the U.S. government. They came back with, quote, no evidence of white matter tract abnormalities, end quote, but that the individuals had all, quote, sustained injuries to widespread brain networks, end quote. So basically, they checked white matter. They didn't see a whole lot of tract abnormalities, whatever the fuck that means. But they did see that there was injury to the brain networks, which is something you don't want and you wouldn't have naturally. And all of these people wouldn't have just contracted without something actually being the source. Then, skeptics came in and said there wasn't proof that there was an energy source that affected them or that an attack even took place. So they doubted the results of these studies because they said, you haven't proved that there was an attack yet. So to recap the first part, medical doctors study these people's brains and they report on what they found, and people not part of that study came forward to dispute the findings based off of an inability to find a weapon or determine the source of what caused the damage. That's like treating a person for a gunshot wound, finding the wound, finding the bullet, and then someone else who wasn't even part of the operation saying, that's not real because we haven't found the gun yet. It's just stupid. It's absurd. Another study is done less than a year later that shows even more specific and significant damage to all of these folks' brains. This study states, quote, differences in whole brain white matter volume, regional gray and white matter volume, cerebral, I wish you guys could see Robin's face right now, cerebellar, microstructural integrity, and functional connectivity in the auditory and visual spatial subnetworks.
That means shit's missing. Like
shit's damaged.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in that brain that is not normal.
Exactly. Lots of science words to tell you that some people got fucked up really bad from this. Whatever had happened, they were really messed up. On top of that, Canada wound up doing their own tests on their own diplomats who had all been brought home and found the exact same thing.
That's messed
as this
up.
Second study.
It's terrifying because to me, I think that some political crap out there was just like, we gotta test this. We gotta test this on these.
It doesn't even sound like a test. It just straight up sounds like an attack.
Like they already did their test and they knew it would work. So
yeah.
they're just like,
tests were done elsewhere, and this was just, hey, let's start using whatever this is. That's kind of what it feels like to me, but there's other things that it could be. So it's around the time that this second report comes out, and Canada has its own report that comes out that corroborates the results, that folks calling bullshit on everything start to kind of trickle off. And the debate really becomes what could have caused the injury. Not that the injuries don't exist because there's no source. That's not how it works. In fact, there's a lot of times where when the government gets involved and they're pumping out reports, the reports that come out are from experts that are saying, lack of evidence isn't proof of anything, shut the fuck up. And I was so happy to see that, because it was just like all the shitty skepticism that you typically see when it comes to paranormal or supernatural or cryptid activity. It doesn't exist here. It did exist, but it got shot down really hard because it's like, that's just lazy science. And it was really nice to see scientists step up and say, we need to figure out what's going on, basically. It actually took Canada longer to pull their diplomats back and bust that down to a skeleton crew than it did for the United States. And because of that, I think 7 diplomats from Canada wound up suing the Canadian government for not protecting them like they're supposed to.
What?
And the lawsuit, I don't think has been finished, but the government of Canada has argued that it's been trying to go through the process of protecting them and investigating simultaneously.
That's crazy.
I think that's where it stands right now, though. Another study gets released in 2019 related to the Canadian diplomats, and it stated this wasn't caused by some mystery microwave device. This 2019 report states that they had obtained, quote, clinical, imaging, and biochemical evidence, end quote, that they were overexposed to a neurotoxic pesticide.
So they were poisoned.
They were poisoned. That study posted that the hotel and areas the diplomats stayed in were frequently sprayed with an anti-Zika virus mosquito pesticide to prevent an outbreak. So maybe this pesticide was the cause, but here's the thing. The quote-unquote attacks haven't stopped. They've only slowed down. Not only were more people affected by Havana Syndrome in Havana as recently as 2019, but Havana Syndrome is not limited to Havana, Cuba. Diplomats reported similar attacks and after effects in Guangzhou, China. The U.S. Embassy in Guangzhou is actually the largest U.S. embassy that exists in China.
I believe that.
So the fact that it was happening here was quite startling. And diplomats reported this happening from 2017 to 2018 before multiple individuals had to be returned to the United States due to their symptoms. And that's not all. In total, since 2016, around 130 separate cases came in from various countries that include Russia, Poland, Georgia, Taiwan, Australia, Colombia, Uzbekistan, Austria, and more. It has also happened in Washington, D.C. One of the cases in Washington, D.C. happened on the White House lawn during an event.
Are these all in the same year or like over the years?
Over the years, since 2016. So both instances had folks report the same type of attack and the same symptoms afterwards, but no attackers were ever identified. Those 2 instances occurred in 2020 and 2021, as recently as this year. So with so many cases coming in and not all being studied for potential brain damage like the original Havana cases, it was only a matter of time before someone called for one of the more common explanations in cases that are widespread and don't have a definitive cause: mass hysteria. A Dr. Robert Ballo and a Dr. Robert Bartholomew published a book in 2020 called Havana Syndrome, Mass Psychogenic Illness and the Real Story Behind the Embassy Mystery, and hysteria.
That's the new Muse album, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So they state in this book that the symptoms for what happened to both the Americans and Canadians in Havana are a result of believing something has happened to you and developing actual real life symptoms based off the fear of it, similar to Robin's ear problems plaguing her right now.
Dude, I don't know. As soon as you started talking about all that stuff, I can feel this like painful pulsing in my ear. But it's kind of like when you have sympathy pregnancies, right? Where the husband starts getting these, or the father of the child starts feeling... I was going to
say, Jesus, it's 2021,
I know.
Robin.
And they start feeling what the mother is feeling, right? They're starting to get their own morning sickness, and they're starting to develop all these things because it's... You kind of feel it, you see it and you feel it. And I think that could totally be a thing.
It is a real thing, to be sure.
I know, I'm thinking about it right now, and I think it's just making it worse, you know?
It's basically like the placebo effect, but an evil version of it. You know, they use the example in the book, is if you were to eat something and someone were to tell you after you ate it, hey, you just ate rat poison. And you panicked and you honestly thought you ate rat poison.
Well, then you start thinking
convinced.
like, something weird tastes on my tongue. I can taste the
symptoms
poison.
you may develop, like from the panic and the fear and expectation of eating poison, might mimic exactly what would happen had you eaten rat poison. As the case is kept coming in, any actual case is determined to be irrelevant, as the symptoms were basically self-sustaining from the idea of what was happening, according to this book. And this idea gained a lot of traction. It was already tossed around a little bit that there was some sort of hysteria going on that had spread to diplomats all around the world, and was actually reviewed by the State Department, the United States State Department, along with all of the observed evidence in the cases that they had already monitored. They compared the two. The State Department determined that while it is plausible, some of the resulting physical damage, most notably the noises that had been heard during the events and the damage to the auditory system of several victims, was not consistent with this theory. They didn't basically come in and say, hey, we think this is actually the case. They said psychogenic illness is probably not what's going on here based off of some of the actual injuries that have been suffered. So lots of folks think that they have an explanation as to what has happened here, but these cases continue to happen. Well, and
it's like, how do you explain the brain damage?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
On top of that, they have happened as recently as 6 days ago, as of this recording.
Which is the 30th.
Okay. This happened on the 24th. 2 U.S. officials in Vietnam actually reported that they suffered an attack similar to Havana Syndrome and the symptoms that occur after it. They had to be medevaced out of the country. This actually caused the current sitting vice president, Kamala Harris, to delay her trip to Vietnam from Singapore. She's doing a trip throughout that particular continent, and they delayed the trip by several hours to determine whether or not it was safe. And that's not something that you do for mass hysteria. That's not something that you do for bullshit. That's something that you do if there is an actual legitimate threat that you might be concerned is posing a threat to a person in power, and you don't want to put them in the line of fire, so to speak. So the VP was only delayed several hours, and the case was reviewed. They decided to push ahead with the trip. But this is something that doesn't seem to be going away. It has slowed down since it garnered so much attention, but it's basically unknown what and who causes Havana Syndrome, if there is a who. But it appears to be very real, and it's definitely very scary.
What if it's an insect? What if it's some random new species of insect?
What's really funny is the cover of the book, Havana Syndrome Mass Psycho, is a bug. Because one of the theories that gets floated around is that this has been done by the frequency of bugs outside the windows of people in Havana, which also doesn't hold true because all the other countries where this happened didn't have the same insects that they theorized could have been responsible for what happened in Havana.
What if it's like a, what if it's like a nanobot, you know? What if it's
a Terminator?
It could be so many things, but you know what I mean, though? It could be so many things.
We'll never know if it's a Terminator because they won't let us know if Sarah Connor was one of the names. What if all 21 diplomats are named Sarah Connor? I think I just cracked the case. Maybe it's a really, really persistent case of mass hysteria that has some unexplainable injuries and people just get scared. It's like thinking you're going to catch something, like COVID, and then you just get a cold. but you're so terrified of it, you're just convinced, and then everyone has to be careful about
Just
it.
get tested.
So, okay, cool. Thank you for bringing that up. But what I'm saying is when it comes to this particular thing, it's just something that could be affecting people psychologically. And I'm wondering if it eventually gets discovered just what it is, so I can do a follow-up on this. But right now, I'm going to go with aliens. I haven't done the extraterrestrial angle in a long time, and I don't want to get Havana unanad by whoever's actually out there doing this.
Well, you've heard all my random things that I've brought up of what it could be.
So I'm going to go ahead and call it aliens. And I don't really know what it is. No one really knows what it is. I think the evidence really points to something has happened and no one can really explain what it is or how it's being done. And that is pretty freaking scary.
Well,
so
now that you, what if it's like, you know how when a, you know how when a fly buzzes past you, right? You hear the sound of them. What if it's something like that? I don't know.
You don't think all these diplomats wouldn't bring up like, and then a fly flew past my ear.
I don't know. You never know.
You just make up evidence to postulate stuff.
Yeah. So what's the fun in trying to guess?
What's the fun in gathering evidence and trying to figure out what something is when you can just randomly guess a bunch of bullshit?
It's 2 a.m. I can do what I want. All right.
And that, my spooky friends, is Havana Syndrome.
All right. So before we get into the next topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. You guys can take a quick commercial drink wherever you are. And sit back down or stand up or vacuum or do whatever you want to do while you listen to us.
Cool. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the other episode. Holy shit. All right. Welcome back to the other side of the episode. By other side, I mean other half, second half. And this week I'm going to be covering something that I've come across a few times, but just never thought of covering it as a topic because it isn't necessarily scary. You know, it's on the ish side of scary-ish. And this week I'm going to be covering the legendary Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible. Now, this isn't, again, a scary topic. It is more of like a legend type thing. It is called the Codex Gigas. Really what that means is giant book. That's all. You know what I mean?
So where did it get the nickname the Devil's Bible?
We'll get there. But the sheer task of creating this beast of a book is something else. It's nuts.
Now, is it bound in human flesh?
No.
So it's not the Necronomicon from Army of Darkness, because that's what I'm picturing.
No, it's not.
Okay.
All right. So if you've never heard of the Codex Gigas or the Devil's Bible, it really just looks like a really old book. That's really all there is to it. It's a book bound by wooden boards covered in leather with ornate metal guards and fittings. So when you think of like a really fancy old book that you see in bookshelves where the corners have metal pieces on them and stuff like that, that kind of thing. It's a big fancy book. It's about 36 inches long, 20 inches wide.
It's 3 feet long.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know.
That's about a meter. A little under a meter. Or 3 meters. No, 1 meter.
It's a little under a meter.
Yeah. Shit. We're not good at the international scale here. Fuck you. Okay. Anyway, 36 inches long, 20 inches wide, just under 9 inches thick. It's a big book. Just imagine having to carry around a 3-foot long, 9-inch thick book. It's huge.
There's no
gigantic
backpack in the world that could fit that book.
No, there's no backpack in the world that could fit that thing. It's the size. It's legitimately the size of a small toddler. I looked it up. The average heights of children, it's around a 3-year-old.
Wow.
It's the size of a 3-year-old. Okay, it's huge. It apparently is the largest known medieval manuscript. At least that is still in existence that we know about. For all we know, there could have been a lot of huge manuscripts that were made back in the day that have burned up in medieval flames. I don't know.
So it does exist then?
This thing exists now.
So it's a legend, but it's a legend of something that actually exists.
The legend of its creation.
Oh,
That's what's so legendary about it.
Gotcha.
So, but this thing exists. You can visit it. Who knows if there were other big books like this one out there. We weren't there. It's not written down in the history books that they made a bunch of big ass books, right? But this one is one that we know about and is still in existence today. It weighs a whopping 165 pounds.
It's a lot bigger than a toddler.
Yeah, the weight of it is definitely bigger than a toddler. The size, imagine just a really, like, I don't know, whatever, mass.
Very dense, 3 foot tall toddler. Got it.
Dense toddler. So that's 165 pounds or 76.8 kilograms. A big book. It takes 2 people to move this thing. It's huge.
Or one Terry Crews.
Oh, fuck. Terry Crews is so tall. It's crazy. So this book is made up of 310 leaves or sheets of vellum that are supposedly made from the skins of 160 donkeys or calf skins. What?
It's just so bizarre, the ingredients of this thing so far.
Totaling about 1,535 square feet of surface area. That's how many sheets, right, are in this thing, how big this thing is. It was originally thought to have contained about 320 sheets, but it's unknown who or why there were sheets that were removed.
Is it weird that I get kind of excited when you're describing this thing? Because I'm like, what if it's college ruled? Like, then I definitely want one. I can keep all my notes in it.
It's 3 feet tall. I mean,
imagine how much you can fit on one page if it's college ruled. That's my point.
The manuscript is drawn in red, blue, yellow, green, even gold inks. Pretty colorful. The letters that begin each book of the Bible that are written in this book are incredibly over the top and elaborate. Like, they take up a huge, huge chunk of the page for one letter. Okay. Each letter is drawn in multiple colors, takes up huge portions of the page. So there are 57 of these letters that survive because this is parts, like, the Bible's written in here, right? The beginning of the book of Genesis is missing, so that's why there's that letter that's missing from there. I don't know if there's some connotation in there somewhere as to that part being missing, but that's...
Sounds like you're reading into some stuff here.
That's just me trying to make this even spookier, okay? I'm trying to make this scary. It's really just...
You don't have to make it scary.
It's
make it informative.
It's just really interesting.
Its nickname is the Devil's Bible.
There are 20 letters written in blue, decorated with red vines. They're just like special letters that are written in there. Almost all the illustrations in the book are geometrical or plant-based in design. So, vines, leaves, flowers, things like that. Nice geometric shapes, like stained glass windows type looking stuff. There are big notable images, though. There is the portrait of the author of one of the pieces of literature that are in this book called Josephus. And there's one of a squirrel that's perched on top of one of the letters. That's kind of cute.
This book sounds so evil so far.
The biggest, most well-known image in this book, this codex, is the portrait of the devil that takes up almost an entire page.
You took out a full-page ad for him. Huh?
Yep, full-page ad, yes. Also, within the pages of the book, there are images that represent heaven and earth, and the quote-unquote creation that take up huge parts of pages. There's the sun, moon, stars. There's even a planet that seemingly has no landmass and is just ocean. But when I read that, I was like, that just is a blue circle on a page. Right?
That's funny.
But there's no pictures that I've seen so far of it. But there are other capital letters that are larger than normal. There's extra outlines on letters. It's all really fancy shit. This book is just over the top fancy. Okay. There's none of my chicken scratch type writing in there. It's all
you have perfect handwriting. Everyone always comments on it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Okay. Anyway, this book, super fancy. What makes it even more interesting is that from beginning to end, the writing is all uniform. So this huge page, we know of 310 pages, all uniform, 3 feet tall. Okay, this book is long as fuck. 9 inches in thickness. It's a lot. And all the writing throughout the whole thing is uniform. There's no sign of change throughout the manuscript. It's not like the beginning looks really nice and then the end gets really sloppy. It's like whoever wrote it did it perfectly. And I know when I write stuff like essays or anything on paper,
You end it with like whatever fuckers.
the
You're
beginning,
so
no, like your hand gets tired, right? Your hand gets tired. So the beginning is like nice and super
When's the last
straight
time you
letters.
wrote an essay by hand?
I have to write all those fucking notes for the patrons. I think you can go fuck yourself.
Those aren't essays, that's all I'm saying.
But I have to write for 50 people.
I feel bad whoever gets number 49 and 50 when you just have chicken scratch where you're holding the pen in your mouth.
I have to split it.
Like,
I have to split it between 3 to 4 days because my hand hurts so much.
I wrote like 3 or 4 this past season.
Okay.
Just saying.
Oh my, fuck you. Okay. Anyway. So, this person did everything perfectly, never faltering from beginning to end. And it leads people to believe that the book was written in an unbelievably short amount of time because everything's perfect. So, scientists and interested parties investigating the origins of this manuscript theorize that it would have had to have taken over 20 years to complete. So, how did this person make this perfect book? This person didn't get sick. Their hands didn't get all fucked. Everything is perfect in this book. You know what I mean? And it's so this blows people's minds. The fact that this was written this way.
Okay.
With all the pictures too, all the ornate
So they're
pictures and
shocked
drawings.
how consistently good this book was written, basically.
Yes.
Everything looks like it's been done. It's all uniform. It's like Tom Brady switched out being a quarterback for writing big books. And because he's just been consistent for a really long time, is my point.
Okay, yes. Yep.
This guy's the Tom Brady of bookmaking. That's all I'm saying. Oh my
God. Yes. And the fact that it should have taken like 20 years, it's kind of like Tom Brady. He should have retired, right? But
he just won a Super Bowl. So I don't think he has any thoughts of retiring right now.
Anyway. Other interesting things about this book are, they include that the first page consists of 2 Hebrew alphabets, which is why. Why would you do 2 Hebrew alphabets, right? Half the codex consists of the entire Latin Bible in the Vulgate version, except for the books of Acts and Revelations that are from the pre-Vulgate version. So that's a mix of late 4th century translation of the Bible, right? And then there's a mix from that before then. So it's like, why would you change it up like that? It includes...
Maybe he didn't have it, or he did those sections first, and then the new version came out, and he translated from the new version. It's not as crazy as it sounds.
This was written in like the 1200s, so
okay,
he would have had all that.
The official answer is I don't. Well, hear me out. Maybe.
Oh no! Fuck! I knew you were gonna say something stupid. Okay.
Which is ironic because all I did was say something you said 20 minutes ago, but it's stupid now.
I don't think they had no, because they didn't have nanobots in the 1200s.
You said it was written perfectly over 20 years, Robin. That sounds like nanobots to me.
Fuck. It would have taken 20 years is what I said. But they don't think that it would have taken there's no way that it was actually done in 20 years. They think it was done way faster than that. But in today's time, for someone to try to do that, it would take them 20 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
Of
nonstop work.
Right,
no Netflix, no Hulu. You just gotta fucking write and draw and write and draw 24/7. All right. Okay. So this codex, it includes the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Antiquities of the Jews written by Josephus, some medical works by Hippocrates and others, and other pieces of literature. There's even writings in there about exorcism, about magic. There's even a calendar with a list of saints and Bohemian peoples and the days in which they are honored. So this codex includes so much information, right? Now, I did say that there was a notably large illustration of the devil. And when I say large, I mean 20 inches. This book is 36 inches. So that's a majority of the page, right? And it's on this page by itself. There's nothing else on that page. What's also notable is that the page opposite is a full page illustration of what would be the heavenly city. It would be heaven. So if you flip this book open, left side would be heaven, right side would be this depiction of the devil. And it's a pretty blatant depiction of good and evil, I think, right? Because they are directly across from each other. The devil is depicted with not hooves, but large claws tipped in red. It has large red horns and a blue/green looking face. It has more of a human look to it with like animal extremities. There's no tail or anything, but there's a bunch of what looks like curly hair on its head, a mouthful of sharp teeth, and 2 long red tongues. And the text before the image of the heavenly city, the text before that refers to penitence. And then the text after the devil is about exorcisms. So it's really weird, right? To have that like that. Those 2 images are the only ones that have the pages all to themselves.
Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Penitence as a word obviously has biblical implications. Whenever I hear that word, I immediately think only the penitent man will
Yes,
pass.
Indiana Jones. If you guys have not seen that movie.
And The Last Crusade.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. All right, anyway. It seems like the red on the devil was added for a very specific reason. Why the horns and the tongue and the claws are the only things that are red. I think the pupils on the eyes are also red. But to me, if we're going to post a picture, or Adam's going to post a picture on Instagram later, but to me, it looks a lot like an East Asian depiction of demons or evil spirits.
Okay.
It's really interesting. The tongues are very serpent-like, kind of like a forked tongue type thing. And we all know what snakes are a sign of in the Bible and other,
It is still very weird to me that all throughout the world, snakes were depicted as the epitome of evil. Like, even in, like, different cultures that hadn't heard about Christianity, they used to build stuff like, I've visited Serpent's Mound, which was created before they had heard about Christianity, and it's an image of a giant serpent swallowing an egg, and the egg depicts the sun, and it's supposed to depict the end of the universe. There's just so many cultures that have depicted snakes as evil.
In Asia, it's a little different. I don't think there are big, huge temples that are built about snakes. Like the whole thing, all the rails are snakes and stuff like that, because they're not necessary. It really depends on where you're from. Because I'm a snake, okay, that's my zodiac, and I don't think that means I'm bad.
I don't know.
Fuck you, okay?
Snake and a Scorpio.
That just means I'm super hot. So there are understandable legends surrounding the Codex. Maybe not so much legends, but there is a not so definitive history to this big, huge book, right? It's said to have been created by Herman the Recluse. Recluse?
Either works.
Okay. They were a monk in a Benedictine monastery in the Czech Republic. The monastery was destroyed sometime during the 15th century during the Hussite Revolution, which was a series of wars between the Christian Hussites and the Catholics under the Roman Emperor Sigismund. Apparently, and I say apparently because this is all not 100% known, right? But the records in the Codex end in 1222. Shortly after the Codex was written, it was pawned by the Benedictines to the Cistercian monks, where it was left for 70 years. It was then reclaimed by a different Benedictine monastery in the Czech Republic. It was then taken to Prague, where it was part of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II's collection. So he had his own little collection of stuff. After the 30 Years' War, which is one of the most destructive wars in European history, in 1648, that very collection was taken as loot by the Swedish army. So the Swedish army came in, took all of Rudolph's shit, took it back with them, and it was kept in the Swedish Royal Library in Stockholm between 1649 and 2007.
Holy shit, they kept that forever.
Yeah, they're like, fuck you, we're
They
keeping
stole
this
shit from the Pope, and they kept it till 2007, you said?
Yeah, till 2007. So during that time, there was a fire that actually damaged the Royal Library pretty badly.
This is why you don't let people borrow your shit.
In 1697. And that the Codex, that, may I remind you, is 3 feet long and 9 inches thick, was saved by being thrown out a window.
Wow.
This 165-pound book was thrown out a window. Supposedly, it landed on a bystander and understandably injured that person.
God thanks you.
Imagine how hard that must have been. It must have taken multiple people to throw that thing out the window.
I'm going to go ahead and go with one Terry Crews yet again.
There are notes within the text that point towards certain points in the book's traveling history. So those points are more definite in its history, like it having been pawned off before. That's written in notes in the text. But not everything is known, you know. According to a very popular legend that was actually recorded in the Middle Ages, the scribe of the Codex was a monk. And that monk actually broke his monastic vows. And because they did that, they were sentenced to being walled up alive, which means they brick you in, right? Yeah.
That's horrifying.
In order to avoid this punishment, he promised to create a book in one night that would glorify the monastery forever, filled with the world's knowledge, which is why this book includes the Bible, all the medical stuff, all the stuff about all the saints and all the days and calendar stuff, right? But come midnight, he became more and more aware that this was something that was just not possible. You couldn't do that in one night. So he prayed, but he didn't actually pray to God. He made a special prayer to Lucifer. And he asked for his help to finish the book in exchange for his soul. And according to legend...
Can you imagine Lucifer fulfilling this deal and like writing the parts where it's like calling him an asshole the whole time? He's like, I'm going to make myself look badass. I'm taking up a full page for myself.
I'm sure that's what happened. According to the legend, the devil did help. They actually completed the manuscript for the monk.
The devil worked on the one page of himself for like 6 hours. And I was like, you do the rest, dickhead.
And that huge depiction of the devil was added as a sign of gratitude for his assistance. That's how the legend goes, that's the reason why there's a huge page. But you never know. You weren't there, right? It could be that the devil's like, fuck you guys. I won't draw your stupid little city here, but look at me. I'm fucking badass. I got my own fucking page, you know? Who knows? But that's why it's called the Devil's Bible. It's not because this whole thing is written, you know, in an evil way. It's just, why does he have a whole page
for
to
something
himself?
So incredible that contains so much knowledge that it's this amazing artifact to get such a shitty nickname like the Devil's Bible?
No,
such a fucking insult.
But it's called the Codex Gigas. It's called Giant
That's
Book.
what it's going to be called on the episode title. I'm not putting Devil's Bible.
Okay. So, if the same person wrote that whole book, I wonder why there was such a mix of alphabets and Latin used to write the whole thing. I was also reading that there is 3 other languages or something fit into this book. Maybe back in the day, people actually learned languages and these... legumes. People actually learned languages, you know, and so that was more common. These days, like...
I know one languages.
I only know like 2 legumes. But the legend of the devil doing the finishing up would make sense to me, like how it's so different, you know, the languages and stuff like that.
Makes sense to you?
Yeah, the devil did it. Which is a new movie, by the way, right? The Devil Made Me Do It. That's a new movie.
That's a different saying than what you said. And it's not new. It's newish. It's not split hairs here.
Well, you know, we're called Scaryish, so why don't you go fuck yourself? Okay, it's just really weird to me. It just doesn't make sense that this one... It could be a whole group of people that were like, okay, everybody got 10 pages. We're all going to finish this shit, and
Here's the stencils everyone's going to be using for every single letter. If you don't use it, I'll punch you in the throat.
But yeah.
Can you imagine finishing something and it's so perfect. People are like, Satan must have done this. It's like, no, asshole. Like, I did this.
But it has been tested in attempts to recreate the work in this codex and doing just the calligraphy, none of the fancy drawings, any of the extra crap in there, just the calligraphy. It would take 5 years for one person to try and do all that calligraphy. It would take 5 years.
It was probably multiple people working on the same project. They had to have some way that they all aligned on exactly how these things would look.
So for the codex in its entirety, for one person, it would take 20 to 25 years of non-stop work to finish, which makes it even more incredible that the book is so consistent from start to finish. And I just think that's so odd. You know, it could be a whole group. It really could be a whole group of people working on this thing. And maybe they all trained together writing or something like that. But I would assume there's like, handwriting analysts, right? Professionals that do that. And they're just like, nah, dog, it's all the same shit. It's the same person doing this whole thing. Who knows? You know what I mean?
So where can I go see this thing? Because I obviously need to put this on my bucket list because I want to see this book.
You can visit the book in Sweden, I believe. And there are a few digital pages online that you can read. Totally safe to read. You're not going to get some curse or something from reading it.
Whoa, let's not make any guarantees here, okay?
I assume, okay? It was exhibited in Prague in 2007, but in order to do so, they had to guarantee the book for $15.1 million US just to show this, you know, exhibit of this book.
It's an expensive book.
That's an expensive book. So you probably, I bet you probably won't see this in any of your countries anytime soon. You know what I mean? It's not coming to a country near you. But
it's still in Sweden, even though they fucking stole it? Is it like ruled under finders keepers at this point?
I don't know. But it is now kept in a dimly lit room under a glass case because any UV light actually turns the pages black.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a couple pages that's already happened to. So they're like, no, we can't do this because there's already pages lost to history now.
Right.
So, yeah. It's pretty creepy. I think that's
awesome.
creepy.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
I honestly thought when you told me that you were going to be doing, what is it, the Devil's Bible? I was like, oh, okay. Like, that sounds unique.
What it really means is it's the devil wrote all the books for the Bible into this book. But that's not, you know, it's not actually what happened. It's just the legend of this book.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have happened. Who knows?
There's so many legends about what the devil has done and not done. Like, he lost a fiddle to some kid in Georgia, but he wrote a book that's really long in a night. It's really hard to keep track of whether or not he's gullible or whether or not he's the, like, trickster supreme. I don't know. I just think that this sounds like an incredible work of art that I definitely want to see, and it just really bothers me that people always have to attach something that they can't explain to something evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It couldn't be like an angel came down and helped him finish it because it was so important to have all these things written down.
Technically, it's a fallen angel.
God damn it. Stop it. Stop correcting me. You get my point. No one goes good on these things. It always has to be evil because people are pessimists and assholes like Robin has exhibited already. So either way, it was a fascinating topic. Good job. And with that, I think we are done with episode 194. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you have a story you would like to send our way, it could be supernatural, paranormal, coincidental. Sometimes we do true crime, or sometimes we do extraterrestrial stories. Basically, if they get sent to us, we'll do them. You can email storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com, click on contact us, fill out that form. It comes directly to us. You can also hit us up on our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod. And Instagram is @scarishpodcast. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Those are monthly donations. Tiers start at $1. At $1, you get ad-free, which is kind of cute.
Ad-free is the way to be.
And then you can also go to coffee, ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast. And those are one-time donations. And all your donations really go to helping us keep the show running.
Indeed. So everything is appreciated, whether or not you donate. You just listen,
Share
it
us with your friends, family.
It really helps. We sincerely appreciate all of you out there, and thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate it. So I think that's everything we have. So Robin, why don't you go ahead and sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.